Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Good people. Okay. Today I'm going to do a summary for term two topic of which those are compounds. Are we fine? Okay. So now what I want you to note is just simple and straightforward. Okay. So now the first topic for natural sciences in grade 9. So in fact, before I forgot, grade 8, grade 9. Kindly please make sure that you tune in. Okay, so now the first topic that you're supposed to be doing, that will be compounds. Compounds. We will come in on the definition, but under compounds, these are the topics that you're going to focus on. The periodic table. I hope you're fine. And then the other one is what? Names of compounds. Or you can just say naming compounds, but I will prefer names of compounds. Okay, under compounds. And then we also have that topic that says chemical reaction. Chemical reaction. So under chemical reaction, there are a lot of some of the things that you need to understand. We're going to focus on reactants and products. Of which this results as what? Balancing equations. Balancing the equations. Alpha. And the other things, okay, that will be chemical equations. Chemical equations. It's also balancing the equation. I hope you are fine. Okay, now here we're going to look at reactions. Reactions. Yeah? And then the other topics that will be reaction of metals with oxygen, reaction of non-metals with oxygen. Okay, but it's based on reactions. All right, so now I will start with what? The compounds. I will start with the first chapter that says the periodic table. Okay, I hope you're fine. Make sure that you tune in. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, and comment with the topic that you do not understand. Okay. All right. As I was saying, the first thing we will be what? We'll be focusing on the periodic table. The periodic table. Okay. Okay. Guys, this is very simple. On the periodic table, there are a few things that we're going to focus on. Okay. That will be now, before we go any further, periodic table, we will say it is a table that shows all types of elements. Okay. So now, I want you to understand this. The other thing that you need to understand, you need to know what is an element. Okay, the definition for element is simple. This is a pure substance made up of only one type of atom that cannot be split into simpler what? Simpler substances, which means it cannot be broken down. Okay, now we find an element in the periodic table. Okay, how now do we represent? You will just say representation. Okay, how now do you see an element on the periodic table? Okay, you will be given such a square, and then maybe let's say to you, they say this is C, and here it's 12, and here it's 6. Okay, firstly, we need to understand the other key concepts. When you see this C, this type of letter, or it can be CA, it can be SI, but this we call it an what? An atomic symbol. And this one at the top there, we call it what? That is a mass number. That is a mass number. And then this one at the bottom there, we call it what? An atomic number. Okay, I hope you're fine. All right. So now, this is how we represent a what? An element on the periodic table, and this is how you're going to see it on the periodic table. I hope you're fine. Okay, now we are here to enjoy the lesson. All right, now that we are knowing what is the definition of element, remember I said it is a pure substance that is only made up of what? Only one type of atom that cannot be broken down or split into simpler pieces or substances. Okay, now let us go into the content now. All right. On the periodic table, we are just defining the periodic table. It has an element. Okay. Now, I want us to focus on what now? I want us to focus on the issue to say that, okay, the arrangement, no? The arrangement of an element in the periodic table. I will just write it. Arrangement of an element in the what? In the periodic table. Okay, so the arrangement, the elements in the periodic table are arranged in a type that is called what? We have number one, group. It has groups, and number two, it has what? Rows. Oh, not rows, but periods. That is why it is called periodic table. Okay, so now talk to me and listen carefully. Yeah? All right, a group is a what? Is a column in the periodic table. This is a what? A column in the periodic table. All right, then what is a period? A period now, we are talking about a row in the what? In the periodic table. That is a row in the periodic table. Okay, so now what you need to understand, you have just seen the periodic table. Yeah? You will have to have your own periodic table so that you can see it, but I will display a certain periodic table so that you can know what is a periodic table. So but now, as much as you know that a periodic table consists of many types of elements, an element is a what? Is a pure substance that is made up of only one type of an atom that cannot be split into simpler substances. And then the arrangement, how do you find the elements? You're going to focus on the groups and you're going to focus on the period. What is a group? A group is a column in the periodic table. Whenever you're talking about a column, this is what you're talking about. This is what you're talking about. It's going to be like this. This is a column. Are you fine? Okay, then the row, that will be a row. This is a row. I hope we are fine. All right. Now, let us focus on classifications of elements. Whenever you go to the periodic table, this is what you're going to find. Okay. The classification of elements. Classification of what? Elements in the periodic table. Okay, classification. Elements are classified into the three types of things. Ne? We have what you call, they are classified into metals. Ne? Number two, we have what? Classified into non-metals. We have non-metals. Then the other type is what? Semi-metals. I hope you are fine. Okay, so now there will be someone who's going to ask, a kid who's going to ask, say, how do we see those metals in the periodic table? Okay, in the periodic table, the metals, yeah, the metals are arranged, yeah, are arranged between what? Between the, okay, I will just say, okay, metals. You're going to see them on the what? Middle of the periodic table. Middle of the periodic table. They are situated in the middle of the periodic table. And non-metals, how are you going to see non-metals? They are situated in what? On the what? Right hand side. Okay, let me just say to the right. To the right. To the right side of the what? Of periodic table. I hope you're fine. And then semi-metals are situated in what? They are situated between non-metals and what? And metals. Then we say that they form what? They form what you call zigzag. I hope you are fine. That is how you classify elements. We've got different types of elements, of which there are metals. Where are they situated? They're situated in the middle of the periodic table. And then we have non-metals. Non-metals are situated to the right-hand side of the what? Of the periodic table. And then semi-metals, they are between what? They are between the what? The non-metals and the what? And the metals. That is why we're saying they form what? Something like a zigzag. I hope we are fine. Okay, so now let's get into content, whereby now we need to understand naming of compounds. But before we go into further content, I hope you have understand the part of periodic table. You now understand what is periodic table. Okay, we've got what we call the formulae before going forward. Okay, let me just say compounds now. We're getting into compounds now. Okay, Meneer Wase Vaal, what is a compound? A compound is a pure substance formed by a chemical reaction between two or more different elements. I hope you got it. We said a compound, it is a what? It is a pure substance formed by a chemical what? Reaction between two or more what? Elements. Okay, now compound, it is okay, we have defined it, but now I want us, before going any further, let us talk about the formulae now. Formulae of what? Of compounds. Okay, the formula for compounds, that is so simple and straightforward. All right, a compound, remember we said a compound, it is what? It is made up of what? Okay, this is the pure substance formed by chemical what? Reaction. So which means there are two or more different types of elements that react together to form a what? To form a new substance that is called a what? A compound. Okay, now let us make an example, a quick example. Let us say that the hydrogen now reacts with what? With oxygen. I hope you are fine. Okay, let me just write it in full. Hydrogen reacting with what? Oxygen. Ne? Okay. When hydrogen reacts with oxygen, there are some of the elements that are called diatomic elements, of which they have two atoms on it. Okay, so remember, whenever they react, the total the product of these two, it is what? It is what we call H2O. And H2O, it's what, mahwa? That will be water. Ne? All right, a simpler thing, a usual thing that you use every day. Okay, so now this one, we call it a what? It is a hydrogen. Hydrogen. Ne? And then this one, we call it oxygen. These are two types of elements whereby they reacted and they formed what? A new substance called what? Compound, of which is what? Water. Then this number here represents that there are two hydrogen atoms. I hope you're fine. So these are the type. This is one of the elements that examples of diatomic elements. Okay, I hope you're fine on the formula of compounds. You now understand whenever you're talking about a compound, what are we talking about? All right, now let us get into a real content now, whereby now we need to understand naming of what? Naming of compounds. All right, let me just erase this. Okay, we're talking about what? Naming of compounds. Naming of compounds. All right, naming of compounds, guys. This is very simple. I don't know why people are complicating things. All right, I always say to my learners, there are few steps that we need to understand whenever we are naming a compound. Step number one. Whenever you name a compound, that is when you need to do what? You firstly identify the elements in the compound. Now, then step number two. Step two of this, that will be what? They say write down the name of the what? Of the metal first, which means the one that the type of element that is a metal, you must write it first. Then step number three, it says if the compound contains two elements, yeah, if the compound contains two elements, or let me just involve here only two elements, yeah, just two elements, this is where now you need to do what they say to you: name, or write down, name the second. I hope you're hearing me. Name the second one, the second element, and do what now? Change the ending of that element, the ending to what? To what I call 8. Ne? This is how you name it, which means if you are having a compound that contains only two types of what? Elements, you must firstly name the one. Remember the step number 2. You have named the one that has metal first, and then after naming the one, name the second element, ne? And change the what? The ending to what? To "ite." I hope you are fine. I'm going to give you an example. Don't worry. Let us focus. Let us quickly go to step number 4. Okay. Step 4. That is where they say if the compound contains 3 elements. Contains 3 elements. Hear me out. One of which is oxygen. Guys, I hope you're understanding. One of which is oxygen. No? They say that name the element that, okay, let me just say, okay, that is not oxygen. Ne? Name the element that is not oxygen and change that element. Change the ending. The ending to what? Change the ending to what? 8. Change the ending to 8. Okay, let me explain these two things. Remember, for us to name a compound, we need firstly how many steps? 4 steps. But let me tell you one thing. It's going to be 3 steps or 4 steps. Okay, listen to me carefully. Step number one, you identify the elements on that compound. Step number two, you write down the name of the compound that has not compound, the element that has metal. Are we together? The element that has the metal. Step number three, if your compound contains only two elements, you firstly need to do what? You name the second element and change the ending to what? To "ide." And then step number four, if you're not having two, if the compound does not have two elements, then that means it's going to have three elements. If it contains three elements, you just do what? There's gonna be one of which is oxygen. If the one that has oxygen, you just leave it and name the element that is not oxygen and change its ending to what? To "ate." I'm going to do examples. Okay, let us go to do examples now. I hope you've understand the steps. Okay, now, as I was saying, let us focus on what? Let's say that the examiner question says, okay, let me just say example. Examples. Okay, A. Let us say examiner say, okay, 1A. Let me just say write down the name of the following write down the name of the following compound. Ne? Okay. Okay, compounds that contains, for additional who do not understand, that contains the following elements. The following elements. Okay, now listen to me carefully. Let us say that A, you are given what? Let's say A, you are given calcium and what? And sulfur. Yeah? They say now, we want the compound, name the compound of the what? That contains calcium and sulfur. Okay, remember now we need to follow the steps. Those 4 steps, we need to follow them. How so? Remember they said you must name what? We must firstly identify the elements. Number 1, we're having calcium. This is how you identify them. We're having calcium, and if you can check on a periodic table, calcium it's the type of what? Of a metal. Yeah? And then number 2, we are having what? Sulfur. Sulfur, it is a non-metal in your periodic table. I hope you are still following. Okay, now talk to me. Step number 1 has been done. Step 1 has been done. We're coming to what? Step 2 now. Step 2, they say that we must write down the what? You write down the what? You write down the name of the metal first. Between calcium and sulfur, which element that contains metal? That is calcium. So we firstly need to write it down. You write it first to say that this is what? This is calcium. All right. Then the step 3 says if your compound contains only 2 elements, okay. How many elements are we having in that compound? We are having element number 1 of which is calcium. We are having element number 2 of which is what? Sulfur, which means we are following step number 3. So they're saying if you are having only 2 types of elements, that means you need to name the second element. Remember, you have named what? The calcium. Therefore, we forget about calcium. We focus on what? We are left with sulfur. You write the second what? You write the second element and change its ending to what? To ID. IDE. IDE. No? Okay, now we write it now. Let us write it down. Remember that will be calcium what? Sulfur. That will be sul. Remember the ending, that will be what? Sulfide. I hope you are fine. I hope you're fine. It's either the spelling is incorrect, but I'm not sure. But this one, okay. This will be sulfide. Yeah? You change its ending to what? to sulfide. So this is how we name compound. Remember, you have only obtained what? 2 steps. But you have followed how many steps? 3 steps. I hope you're fine. Let us do another example, a quick one. Let us say now, you have been given letter B now to say that you have been given again calcium. Ne? Let us say you're given calcium, and then they've given you okay, let me just say sulfur again. Sulfur, and then they say the last one is what? Oxygen. All right, this one, the only step that you're going to follow, it is step number 1, step number 2, and step number 4. Why not step number 3? Because remember, on step number 3 they said that we must do what if the compound contains only 2 elements, but here we're having how many elements? 3 elements. So this is element number 1, of which is what? That will be calcium. Element number 2, sulfur. Element number 3, that will be oxygen. Okay, I can write it here in. Okay, fine. Remember, we follow what first? Step 1. What does step 1 says to you? It says to us, we must identify the elements in the compound. Number 1, we are having what? Calcium. Number 2, we are having what? Sulfur. Number 3, we are having what? Oxygen. No? Okay, calcium. What is a calcium? Remember, in the periodic table, calcium is classified as what? That will be a metal. And this sulfur, that is a what? It's a non-metal. And then oxygen is also a type of what? Non-metal. It falls under non-metals. Okay, now we're not done. We need to follow step number 2. What does step number 2 say? The step number 2 says to us, okay, so we'll write step number 2. You just say step number 2. They say we must write what? We must write down the element that has the metal first. Okay, what is the element that has metal? Between calcium, sulfur, and oxygen. Already we know. That is what? Calcium. You write it down firstly. You write down calcium. Now, and then remember what the step number 3 says. We're not going to follow it. Why? Because it says only 2 elements. But you're going to follow step what? Step number 4. Step number 4 says to us, we must write down what? If the compound contains how many elements? 3 elements. And we've already have 3 elements. That means the one of which is oxygen. Then they said to you, the one of which is oxygen. Name the element that is not oxygen. Okay, remember now, we are done with calcium. We are left with sulfur and oxygen. Then they said to what? Okay, this one already has oxygen. And they said you must write the second one to say what? That is not oxygen. Already we are having oxygen. So we need to write what? Sulfur. Yeah? Remember, they did not say they said you must change the what? That one that has or not that do not have oxygen. We must change it to the what? The ending to what? To 8. So how do we change the ending now? That will be calcium sulfate. This is how we name the compound. I hope you're still following. All right. Last example. If you did not hear. Let's say you are given nitrogen. You are given lithium. And what? Oxygen. Okay. Let us firstly do step number 1. We identify the elements. Nitrogen on our periodic table. So, nitrogen, it is a what? It is a non-metal. That is a non-metal. I hope you're fine. And then let's come to this one now. Lithium. Lithium is a metal. If you can check that on your periodic table. And lastly, we have oxygen. Oxygen is a what? A non-metal. Now, I hope you're fine. Okay, now talk to me. We're going to follow step number 2 now. We are done with step number 1. Step number 2. What does step number 2 say to us? Remember, It says if your compound contains only two elements, you must do what? All right, we're not going to follow step number 3. We're going to follow step number 2. Now, step number 4. It says if your compound contains how many elements? 3 elements. Yes, indeed, we are having 3 elements. This is element number 1, of which is nitrogen, number 2, lithium, and then number 3, that is oxygen. They said to us, we must firstly remember, step number 2 says, we must write down the one that has metal first. Between nitrogen, lithium, and oxygen, which one is classified as a metal? That will be what? That will be lithium. We write it firstly. No? That will be lithium. Okay, we cancel lithium. We are done with lithium. Okay, they said now that step number 4 says if the compound contains 3 elements now, one of which is oxygen, they say to you, name the element that is not oxygen. Okay, the element that is not oxygen, we're not going to take oxygen, but you are left with what? Nitrogen. So we're going to write nitrogen. And they said that element that is not oxygen, you must change its ending to what? To 8. I hope you are fine. Okay, let us focus now. Now this is how we're going to change it. We're going to write lithium. You are not going to say oxygen. You just remove it. You just say nitrate. So this is how we name a compound. That will be lithium nitrate. I hope you are fine. Okay, the other thing that is left now for us to do now, please make sure that you focus on, you tune into our next video, so that don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment if you did not hear. If you need examples or more examples, just tell me on the comment. Thank you very much. And the topic that will be left now on episode number 2, that will be chemical equations. Thank you.